liver and the gallbladder and the pancreas, and we left off on this slide, right? The large intestine. Okay. So the large intestine is going to frame the small intestine. And what that means is the small intestine is kind of held in place against the back of the body wall in the center of the abdomen, and the large intestine will kind of coil around that. So if we have the end of the small intestine, which would be the ileum, that's going to connect to the large intestine at the cecum. And remember, we had the ileocecal valve in between them. Okay. And then the large intestine will go up, over, down, S shape, like that. And all of the small intestines are kind of in the center there. Okay. So this is all going to be large intestine. We'll add some features as we go. All right, so the large intestine is much shorter than the small intestine. It's only about 1.5 meters long, or about 4.5 feet long, and it spans from the ileocecal valve, where the end of the small intestine was, all the way to the anus, which is the exit of the large intestine. And it's designed to absorb primarily water. The large intestine does not absorb any nutrients. It also does not digest. The last place we do chemical or mechanical digestion was in the small intestine, and the small intestine is designed to absorb the nutrients. The only thing that the large intestine can absorb is primarily water and also a couple of types of ions and vitamins. But ions and vitamins are not considered nutrient molecules. Nutrients are proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids. So the last place we actually digest as a human is in the small intestine. Bacteria can do their own digestion in the large intestine, which generally produces gas in us, but we stop digesting in the small intestine. While the unabsorbed food stuff is in the large intestine, it can also be stored there until the next elimination or defecation process, in which feces or fecal matter will leave the body. The large intestine has 3 unique features: the Tinea coli, Huastra, and epiploic appendages. The Tinea coli is a longitudinal band of muscle that runs along the large intestine. So it's not as readily apparent in the cat just because the cat is so small. But when you get to do your next cadaver demonstration with Dr. Jalota, you'll see this band of longitudinal lines running along the large intestine, and that is the Tinea coli. Those longitudinal bands of muscle will contract like this, and therefore it will cause the large intestine to kind of bunch up, and you get pocket-like formations of the large intestine that are called the Huastra. Okay, so let's get some labels on here. This is the Tinea coli, and these are the Huastra. Now, the Huastra are like little pockets of large intestine where fecal matter can be held in a local place for enough water to be absorbed from it. Okay, so the pocket formations, or Huastra, are important for the absorption of water. The other feature of the large intestine is called the epiploic appendages, which are really kind of pockets of the visceral peritoneum. So the large intestine is intraperitoneal. It will be lined by the peritoneal membrane. And that visceral peritoneum layer will form these little pockets every once in a while. It'll come away from the large intestine and form a little pocket. Those are the epiploic appendages. Epiploic appendages. Okay, they don't really serve any function. What they do is just kind of fill up with fat, and it's just a lining of the large intestine formed by the visceral peritoneum. They're not found in cats, so in your dissection you won't get to see epiploic appendages in your dissection, but when you have your next cadaver demonstration you'll see them on the large intestine. Okay, so don't spend any time looking for them in the cat. They don't have them. All right, now the large intestine has divisions just like the small intestine. So the small intestine had a duodenum, a jejunum, and an ileum. The large intestine starts with the cecum, which is a pouch-like beginning of the large intestine, and that is where your appendix is. The full name of the appendix is vermiform appendix, and vermiform has the root term vermis in it, and what did vermis mean? Worm. So this structure is usually about 3 inches or so long in the human, and it looks like a little earthworm that's attached to the cecum. So in our diagram here, you would have this little structure that's attached to the cecum, and that is the vermiform appendix. Now the appendix doesn't serve any function in the human. It's what's called vestigial, which we mentioned when we talked about the tailbone or the coccyx, meaning it's left over from development. The appendix will vary greatly in different organisms. In herbivores, it is fully formed and functional. It's designed to help deal with very fibrous matter, like vegetable matter, a lot of cellulose in the vegetable matter, okay? So if you dissect a rabbit, for example, you would see a huge appendix. In omnivores, it's generally present, but very reduced and non-functional, like it is in us. So it's really tiny, and it doesn't perform any function. It's just a leftover tissue from development. In carnivores, it is absent because carnivores don't eat fibrous matter. They eat other animals, and therefore they don't ever develop the appendix. So in your cat dissection, are you going to see an appendix? No, because they are carnivores. Okay, so it varies from organism to organism. We have it, it doesn't function. That doesn't mean it's not a tissue. Tissues can be infectable. So it is a tissue that's sitting there, it's a structure, and it's attached to the large intestine where a bunch of bacteria are. And if the bacteria infect the appendix, you can get appendicitis. And so now you have an inflammatory condition of the appendix, which can rupture and then cause further infection in the peritoneal cavity. But it doesn't perform a function for the human. It's just there, kind of like our tailbone is. From the cecum, the rest of the large intestine is colon, structures of the colon. So the cecum is the beginning pouch-like part. From there, the fecal matter will travel up the abdominal cavity in the ascending colon. So the structures of the large intestine are named after the direction in which the fecal matter will travel. From there, it's going to have to make an elbow turn, and that turn is called a flexure. So kind of like if you flex your elbow, you get a bend. It's called a flexure, okay? So this one is known as the right colic or hepatic flexure. And the reason it's also known as the hepatic flexure is because it's right under the liver, okay? From there, the fecal matter will travel across the abdomen. What's a good word for across in anatomy? Transverse. Okay, so this will be the transverse colon. Very good. Okay, then we're going to have another flexure, and that flexure is on the left, so it's called the left colic or splenic flexure. And it's called splenic because it's right next to the spleen. Okay. From there, the fecal matter will travel down the colon. What's a good word for down in anatomy? Descending. So this will be the descending colon. Okay. And then it's going to form kind of an S shape, and that is the sigmoid colon. And that will lead into the rectum and the anus. All right, now the large intestine is also tethered to the body wall just like the small intestines were. The large intestine is tethered to the body wall by mesocolon. Mesocolon is a mesentery, that holds the colon. Okay, so when you see mesentery and mesocolon, they're the same type of tissue that is anchoring that part of the intestine to the body wall. But mesentery will always be the one tethering the small intestine. Mesocolon has the word colon in it, indicating that that's the one tethering the colon to the body wall. They're the same type of tissue. They're attaching it to the body wall, but when you hear mesentery, it's small intestine, and mesocolon is large intestine. And we'll see some pictures in just a second. All right, so from the sigmoid colon, the fecal matter will then enter the rectum and then the anal canal. And the anal canal is where the final sphincter of the gastrointestinal system is. And there is an internal sphincter and an external sphincter. The internal anal sphincter is smooth muscle. So when the fecal matter enters the anal canal, it will stretch the wall of the anal canal and send electrical signal to the spinal cord. And the spinal cord will then have a reflex that will go back out to the internal anal sphincter and open that thickened ring of smooth muscle. Okay, so that one's autonomically controlled as a spinal reflex. It's not voluntarily controlled. Okay, but luckily we have an external anal sphincter, because that one is skeletal muscle and is voluntarily controlled. And it allows organisms like the human to be able to hold back the movement of the fecal matter until it would be an appropriate time to defecate. Not all organisms are so lucky, okay? Your dog and your cat at home have an external anal sphincter. Cats, rabbits, horses, sorry, not cats, I just said that. Birds, rabbits, horses, they don't have an external anal sphincter. So in those organisms, when the fecal matter enters the anal canal and the signal goes to the spinal cord, the anus opens up, poop comes out. They have no control over when that happens, okay? But we can, and in our society, that's a good thing. We don't want to be walking around pooping our pants all day long, okay? All right, and the anus is the exit for the fecal matter during defecation to the external environment. Here are some of the structures that we've learned. So we have the ileum, which would be the end of the small intestine, and that would leave the unabsorbed fecal matter into the cecum, which is the first part of the large intestine. Attached to the cecum is the vermiform appendix. Then the fecal matter will go up the ascending colon, make a turn at the right colic or hepatic flexure, transverse the abdominal cavity in the transverse colon, and then make another turn at the left colic or splenic flexure, then travel down in the descending colon, S shape in the sigmoid colon, and then the rectum and the anal canal. You can also see along the way this band of muscle. That is the tinea coli that can contract and form the pocket-like huastra along the large intestine for absorption of water. Okay. And you also see these little pouches. Those are from the visceral peritoneum that fill up with a little bit of fat and are known as the epiploic appendages, not found in the cat. All right, in this diagram we can see the mesocolon. So all of this that's attached to the colon is mesocolon. You don't need to know the different segments of it like transverse and sigmoid and all that. Just what's attached to the colon is mesocolon. What's attached to the small intestine here is mesentery. So mesentery for the small intestines, mesocolon for the large. In the diagram to the left, we can see the anal canal. There's an internal anal sphincter, named so because it's closer to the midline of the body. It is more internal. And that is smooth muscle and is controlled by a spinal reflex. The external anal sphincter is skeletal muscle and is voluntarily controlled. Now, the large intestine is going to be simple columnar, just as it was in the stomach and the small intestine, all the way up to the anal canal. At the anal canal, the fecal matter will have had most of the water removed from it, and so the feces is a little more abrasive than it is farther back in the large intestine, and so the tissue of the anal canal becomes stratified squamous because some cells will be lost as the fecal matter passes out from the body. The large intestine also has goblet cells and will continue to produce a little bit of mucus to ease the passage of the fecal matter through the large intestine. The large intestine also has a natural and normal bacteria flora, which is the natural population of bacteria that is beneficial to the human being as a symbiotic relationship. They are supposed to be in there. Enemas remove these bacteria and should not be done unless directed by a doctor. There are over 700 species of bacteria in the human large intestine. Many of them are strains of E. coli. So not all E. coli are bad. Okay? Most of them are supposed to be inhabiting the tissue of our large intestine. The more good bacteria that we have inhabiting the tissue of our large intestine, the more real estate they take up. If they are forming the colonies in the tissue, pathogens can't. Okay, so removing the normal flora opens up tissue to pathogenic bacterial infection, and that can lead to serious disease. So they're supposed to be there. Not only do they take up real estate, but we provide them food. Whatever we couldn't digest, they can. And that's why we have gas production in the large intestine. It comes from the metabolism of the bacterium. And in the process, they can produce some vitamins that are actually difficult for us to obtain in our diet. They can produce vitamin B complex and vitamin K, which can then be absorbed by the large intestine for us to use. So we have a healthy symbiotic relationship with these bacteria and are supposed to be there. And finally, defecation. As I indicated earlier, it is a reflex action that begins with the fecal matter stretching the rectum and the anal canal walls. That sends a signal to the spinal cord, and the spinal cord will then in turn open the internal anal sphincter. But we have voluntary control over the external one. Two disorders that are associated with defecation are constipation and diarrhea. Excuse me. They are antagonistic disorders, so they're the opposite of one another. Constipation is defined as hypomotility of the large intestine. Okay. There are a number of things that cause constipation. So constipation is not defined by the cause, it's defined by the symptom, hypomotility of the large intestine. So different foods can cause constipation, dehydration can cause constipation. There's a number of causes, but the constipation itself is defined as hypomotility. So if you have hypomotility, it means you're not moving the fecal matter through the large intestine at the normal rate. It's going too slow. When that happens, too much water gets absorbed from the fecal matter, which hardens the fecal matter and makes it difficult to pass. In a lot of cases, constipation is easily fixed. One thing that stimulates the large intestine is a fatty meal. The other thing you want to do is hydrate the fecal matter that's in there. So a liter of water and a couple of donuts should get things moving right along if you have constipation. Not a joke, it's the truth. Now, if constipation is being caused by a disorder, then you would need to see a doctor. But general constipation, you just need rehydration and a fatty meal, and you should be on your way. Diarrhea is the opposite. So diarrhea is hypermotility of the large intestine. Okay. So this would mean that the large intestine is moving the fecal matter too quickly along the large intestine, which means not enough water gets absorbed from the fecal matter and you have soft or runny stools. Again, diarrhea can be caused by a number of things. The condition itself is indicated by hypermotility. So certain foods, bacterial and fungal toxins, stress, A number of things can lead to diarrhea because it causes the large intestine to contract too often, moving the fecal matter too fast through the large intestine. And that's the end of that chapter.